potentially.
Great, thank you very much. So,
what about the neighbourhood plan? Do you want? Is that relevant?
Policy AE2. I mean, well, it's not my proposal, so I'd have to check with the proposer and seconder, but Paul may have a view on that.
I think given the stage it's at, it is referenced in the report, so should we end up at appeal, then it might have moved on further. But I think I don't think there's any need. Well, no, I don't think there's any point in mentioning it in the current decision, given the stage it's at. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Councillor Findlay. So I'll take the vote. It's been proposed by Councillor Murphy, seconded by Councillor Dean, for refusal, contrary to policies SE1 and SD2 being out of character, and policy PG3 representing inappropriate development in the green belt. So I'll take the vote by roll call now, starting with, please indicate for, against or not voting on the proposal for refusal. Councillor Liz Braithwaite, please.
Against.
Councillor Tony Dean.
For.
Councillor Paul Findlay.
For.
Councillor Ailift Howard.
Against?
Councillor Sally Holland.
Yeah, I'm against refusal on this one. I've come to the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ian McFarlane.
For.
Councillor Nick Mannion.
Against.
Councillor Brendan Murphy.
For.
Councillor James Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Brian Puddicombe.
Against.
And Councillor Leslie Smatham.
Against.
And myself, Councillor Craig Brown, for. As I'll just toss up the, but I think that is lost.
6 each.
6 each.
Oh, you've got to vote, Chairman.
Thank you, colleagues, for doing this to me yet again. So what we have come back with is 6 votes each, which means that it goes to the chairman's casting vote. And my original vote was for refusal, and I will vote again for refusal. So thank you very much for your time in considering that application. It's now, by my watch, 6 minutes past 1, and we've been discussing items for 3 hours, so I think this will probably be an appropriate time to take a lunch break. Is everybody happy to be back by 1:40?
Yeah. 1:30.
If anybody disagrees with 1:40, please put their hand up. Otherwise, I'll assume 1:40. Okay, I will see members back at 1:40. Thank you.
Oh, it is that. It's now happened.
Hey, Councillor Gardner, it's Sarah. We've just adjourned for a short break.
No, that's fine. I was worried because I've now got the proper thing on my screen, but up until then I had the light when the committee is in session, and so I was thinking, oh God, there's no voices, and yet I can't. Have I lost connection? It's fine.
No, it's
I'll see you
have come
about
up
9 o'clock tonight then, Sarah.
hopefully 10.
Okay, I'll see you later.
See you in a bit.
Cheers, bye.
Hello, Mr. Hobbs, it's Sarah in Democratic Services. Just to let you know, we've only dealt with the second application so far. So it will be some time before we get to the item you're interested in.
Okay, do you know roughly how long?
It's really difficult to say, but I wouldn't have thought we would get to it before 3 o'clock, much before 3 o'clock. So you're looking at 3 o'clock, potentially later.
Okay, that's no problem at all. All right, I'll come back at 3. But if that changes, maybe you could send me a message.
Yeah, what I'd say is, I mean, we were reconvening at 20 to 2, so I can't imagine that we'll do the next 3 in an hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, if you can log on back at 3 o'clock, and obviously if anything changes and it's earlier than that, I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, good afternoon again, members. Unfortunately, I'll have to go through the roll call again just to make sure we've got everybody in the meeting, and then we'll get on to the next application. So just confirm that you can hear me. Councillor Liz Braithwaite.
Yes, sir, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Dean.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Paul Finlow.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Ailey Harewood.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Holland.
Yes, I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ian McFarlane.
Loud and clear, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Mannion.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Councillor Brendan Murphy.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor James Nicholas.
I'm present as well.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Puddicombe.
Yes, here.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Leslie Smetham.
Yes, present.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to next application, which is item number 7.
I
Application.
have to leave you now. Cheerio.
We'll call you back later. Thank you, Councillor Finlay.
Don't forget.
We won't forget.
Thank you.
Application 20/1866M, which is for the demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of a replacement building comprising 6 apartments at Fairways 70 Macclesfield Road, Prestbury, and the applicant is Mrs. Brenda Crothers. I'd now like to invite our planning officer Paul Wakefield to make the presentation for this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Once again, there is a short update on this one, if I may, just before I move on to the presentation. With regard to trees, so comments were awaited at the time the agenda was published. So we've now got comments from our tree officer, who has noted that the trees identified for removal are not worthy of formal protection in their own right, and their loss would not have a significant impact on the wider amenity of the area. Their loss can be compensated for by new replacement tree planting as indicated in the submitted landscaping scheme. They did, however, raise some concern regarding the proximity of the new northwestern elevation of the new building to the canopy of nearby trees in terms of shading. Accordingly, the applicant has submitted amended plans which just make a few minor changes. One is a small change to the front facing window of the ground floor flat adjacent to the trees to the northwest of the site, removing a pillar between 2 front windows. Another change is to remove the wall dividing the living room and the kitchen in the ground floor, just to ensure that the ground floor benefits from more light from additional windows in the ground and first floor flats adjacent to this group of trees. And then a couple of balconies have been removed, one on the northwestern elevation facing towards this group of trees, which serves the bedroom on the first floor, and a second floor balcony that serves the living room, again on the northwest elevation. And following receipt of those minor amendments to the plans, the tree officers confirmed that these were sufficient to overcome the concerns that they previously identified in terms of shading. So turning to the presentation, I'll just share my screen. Sorry, with me. Yeah. So 70 Macclesfield Road, Prestbury. This is the existing site, which is accessed along quite a long driveway that ultimately leads to the golf club, Prestbury Golf Club, off Macclesfield Road. And you can see that the open land to the northwest of the application site is part of Prestbury Golf Club. Whereas it is currently accessed from the driveway, the access driveway leading into the site there. Just to put it in context, it's the site itself is this area here. As you can see, it's very well surrounded by trees on all boundaries. Main driveway you can just see within the site. It's just a single dwelling that sits there on its own in quite a substantial plot. Next door, these are apartments, Hollybroom House, and then the rest of the development surrounding it is predominantly single dwellings. And then just to put it in a bit wider context, application site edged in red there, and then just off at the top of the page you can just see Presby Village Hall and getting towards the village centre as you carry on down Macclesfield Road. The New Kings development you can just see that was currently under construction at the time of the photograph at the bottom left, with the golf club covering most of that image there, or the golf course. So a few photos of the existing dwelling. So this is looking from the access drive that serves the golf club, but the access to the house, and the entrance to the house there. You can just see it in the background, and then just a better view of the existing front elevation. As you can see, quite landscaped gardens and the trees that surround the property as well. And then the rear elevation, you can just see from this, the land slopes up at the back, so the property at the moment is sort of cut out into the land, and there's a retaining wall that just runs along the back of the house there, which will become clear in more photographs, and then just another photograph of the rear gardens just to show the vegetation that's there within the site and on the boundaries. Existing southeast elevation, so you can just see the back again, how it drops down below the land levels to the rear of the house, and then this sort of shows it in a bit more detail how the land levels rise up as you move into the site further away from the entrance road. Then photograph of the existing garden to the southeast, so the house will be to the right of where the photograph was taken here. You can just see a red car there, which is just at the entrance to the site. Then the existing northwest elevation, again all bordered by trees. Neighbouring apartments, just to put it in context, so these are also accessed from that driveway that serves the golf club. But just to put that, it gives an indication of what else is around. And then looking the other way, the golf course from the access drive, looking towards the site from the golf course, which is to the rear of the site. So it's behind this group of trees here, very well screened. So the application site, as we said, just a single dwelling at the moment, served by the access, but generally the majority of the site is given over to trees and landscape gardens. There are a number of public footpaths that run along each of the boundaries, to be honest with you. One along the access road, and then there's two other paths that run along both the east and west boundaries, that just outside of the application site. So the proposed site, it sits in a similar position to the existing building. You can just see it dotted on this site plan here. There is a proposed apartment building. There's some car parking provided within the grounds as well, but also parking is provided as undercroft parking, minimising the impact on the site in general. So the proposed front and rear elevations. The top image is the front elevation, which members have got in their packs. It's slightly updated. So one of the changes was the removal of, I think there was some sort of timber panelling that goes down the central part of this window, whereas it's been removed at the request of the tree officer, just to provide additional lighting that would serve the apartment on the ground floor. And then again, rear elevation, you can just see, I don't know if you can see, but there is a dotted line that just goes along there where the retaining wall is kept, as was the case as is the case with the existing dwelling, we've got that retaining wall to account for the rise in land levels, and that's replicated within the current proposal as well, which you can probably see from the bottom image that just shows how the land is retained there. So these are the two side elevations. The top one is the northwest elevation that's been slightly amended with the removal of balconies. So it'll slightly differ from the plan that you've got in your key plans pack, just to the extent that the balconies have been removed, but otherwise it's the same. And then the opposite side, the southeast elevation, I think it is, at the bottom there. And that's it for the presentation. But yeah, for the reasons set out in the report, it's recommended for approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. So I'll now move on to the public speakers for this item. And the first of those is Councillor Mike Stewart, who is a visiting councillor. And I'd like to ask you, Councillor Stewart, you have 3 minutes, and please begin whenever you're ready.
I won't need 3 minutes, Chairman. Chairman, members, many thanks for permitting me to address you today. I start off by apologising because I'm the member that has referred this to committee, and I've done it at the request of Prestbury Parish Council, which may seem odd, but I'm a neighbouring councillor to that area, and Councillor Findlow has found it necessary to declare a possible interest. In my opinion, about the only good thing about this application is that it's an improvement, a big improvement, on the previous one that was refused in 2018. I accept that this one is smaller. I accept that it's less intrusive. I also accept that the detailed issues defined in refusal clause 2 of that application concerning the Habitats Directive have now been addressed. The information today regarding trees, well, I regret that as the loss of another possible reason for refusal, but I do welcome the tree officer's safeguarding recommendations that we've heard today. Contrary to the planning officers, though, I am still of the opinion that in the context of this part of Prestbury Village, the scale, design and density of the development are out of keeping with that area. The term town cramming comes to mind as a suitable description. Using the precedent argument that's been applied to the nearby property has also been converted to 6 apartments, seems to assume that every similar property could be converted or replaced. Now, if that happened, that would vastly alter the character of Prestbury Village, and if it happened in another village, it would vastly alter the character of those villages. For that reason, I think that a suitable reason for refusal would be that of reason 1 of the 2018 application. I think that would be appropriate, and that's what I plead with you to decide on today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Can I just ask if there are any questions from members of the committee, please? I'm not seeing facing. Sorry, I was just hesitating as I got feedback. Yes, I can see now that Councillor Smetham would like to ask a question. Please go ahead, Councillor Smetham.
Thank you. I wonder if you're aware of the nature of the household in the existing house, how many people are living there and how many homes it provides?
I am not aware of that, Councillor Smetham. As I said earlier on, I'm not the ward member.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions, so if I could ask you to turn off your camera and microphone, and I'll move on to the next speaker, who is Parish Councillor Danny Franks, representing Prestbury Parish Council. Councillor Franks, if I could ask you to now address the committee. You have 5 minutes. Please begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our reasons for objecting are that the development would be in contravention of the existing HS12 low density housing policy in the Macclesfield Borough local plan, which will continue to apply unless it is changed through Part 2 of the Cheshire East local plan, the site allocations and development plan document. This fact is acknowledged by Emery Planning in their planning statement in paragraphs 1.4, 5.6, 6.1, 6.9 and 6.13. Because of this fact, the proposed development does not accord with the development plan as maintained in paragraph 1.7 of the planning statement. The development would be very significantly greater mass than the existing one. The planning statement says that the replacement buildings would be on the footprint of the existing house. This is somewhat misleading, yet it is quite clear from the general arrangement plan that we saw earlier that this would spread over a significantly larger area than the existing property, possibly by as much as 100%. It would be higher as well as bulkier. It would also consist of 4 stories, a basement which would have to be hewn out into the sandy soil, and 3 stories above ground as opposed to 2 stories at present. It would be at odds with Cheshire East Council's decision in respect of application 19/1955M, land adjacent to Withenley Hollow on Withenley Road, which they refused for the following reasons. The proposed development would be contrary to policy H12 of the Macclesfield Borough Local Plan and policies SE1 and SD2 of the Cheshire East Local Plan strategy by virtue of the development not being commensurate with the surrounding area in terms of size, form and mass of the building within its plot. It should also be noted that the Withenley Hollow site, like the one on the Macclesfield Road, adjoined the Greenbelt. It would also further increase traffic flow onto Macclesfield Road to those expected once or now the new King's School is opened, and they would be generated by the 6 households instead of just the 1. In addition, it would be worth pointing out that the revised policy, which I mentioned before, HOU 12 on housing density, in the second iteration of the site allocations and development policies document, does now require that low density areas should be protected. The policy in the SADPD, currently out for consultation, says, in determining an appropriate density, the following factors should be taken into account: the character of the surrounding area, recognising that there are some new areas of the borough with an established low density character that should be protected, and their wider landscape and or townscape setting. This is an overdevelopment. It is in a low density HS12 area. Its footprint is significantly larger than the existing property, and it would increase traffic flows, increasing from 1 to 6 households. And finally, it completely goes against Cheshire East decision in respect of application 1955, which was a very similar development. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members, please? I'm not seeing anybody indicating, so I guess that means there are no questions for you. So please, but thank you for addressing us. Can I now ask you to turn off your camera and microphone, and I'll move on to the next speaker. So can I now invite Nick Smith, who is the agent for the applicant, to address the committee. Mr. Smith, you have 3 minutes, maybe questions afterwards. Please begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. The application site comprises a detached dwelling within a site approximately 0.5 hectares in size. The site is within the urban area of Prestbury and a low density housing area as identified in the local plan. The application proposes the replacement of 1 dwelling with 1 new building comprising 6 apartments on 3 levels with basement car parking. It will be located on the footprint of the existing building in the centre of the site. The proposed development has been subject to extensive discussions during a pre-application consultation with officers, including 3 meetings. No concerns have been raised by officers during the process in respect of density, scale, design and positioning of the proposed building. The proposal would create a high quality residential development with a low impact on its surroundings. It would make efficient use of land in a highly sustainable location whilst respecting the character and appearance of the area and relationship with neighbouring properties, including an apartment building containing 6 apartments immediately adjacent. The site is well contained and screened from wider areas by mature trees and landscaping and would not result in any harm to the wider landscape. All protected trees and those which are considered to make a significant contribution to amenity, biodiversity and landscape character would be retained. As the site is within a low density housing area, Save Policy H12 has been fully considered. As the proposal would replace one building with one building, the proposal would not conflict with the plot size requirements set out in the policy. Furthermore, the footprint to plot ratio of the development on the site and the space between the proposed building and both the boundaries of the site and neighbouring buildings would be entirely in keeping with the surroundings. Existing high standards of space, lighting and privacy would be maintained. The proposal would fully comply with Save Policy H12, seeking to protect the character and appearance of low density housing areas. The comments made by Prestbury Parish Council and the neighbouring resident have been taken into account. However, matters relating to character and appearance of the area, tree protection, highway safety and amenity have all been addressed through the design and accepted by officers and consultees. The proposed development offers the opportunity to make efficient use of a site, providing 6 3-bedroom apartments in a highly sustainable location without adverse harm to the character and appearance of the area. The low density character of the area would be protected. The proposal would add to the supply and choice of dwellings in Prestbury with a contribution towards the provision of affordable housing in the locality. The report confirms that the proposal would fully comply with the aims and objectives of the framework and local plan policy. And the framework is clear that there is a presumption in favour of sustainable development, and for decision making this means approving development proposals that accord with the development plan without delay. There are no material considerations to indicate otherwise. We respectfully request that members support the proposed development and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And can I ask if there are any questions from members at this point, please? I've got Councillor Puddicombe first and then Councillor Holland.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith. You stated that the footprint of the apartments would be on the footprint of the existing site. Yeah, I see Prestbury Parish Council state it would be significantly larger than the existing property, possibly by as much as 100%. Would you have a comment on that mismatch?
It certainly would have a larger footprint than the existing building. It's clearly shown on the proposed site plan that it'd be entirely on the footprint of the existing building, but would undoubtedly have a larger footprint. However, as I explained and set out in the planning statement, in terms of the footprint to plot ratio of the building in the site, it's entirely in keeping with the surroundings. We've done a full assessment of footprint to plot ratio of buildings in the vicinity of the site, and that's set out in the design and access statement. And that would be entirely in keeping with the surroundings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question was surrounding affordable housing. I just wondered if you could explain on page 50, the policy SC5 of the CLPS. I noticed that 30%, which equates to 1.8 units, need to be affordable units. However, that am I right in thinking that instead there's going to be a contribution of 106,917, or is it a combination of both? And my last question is, what constitutes affordable housing in Prestbury? What figure? Thank you.
Yes, there isn't a proposal to provide any affordable housing on site. It's been accepted. It wouldn't be appropriate for a development of this nature in this location, and an affordable housing contribution has been offered. As far as I'm aware, that's been accepted, and there are no objections to the provision of a contribution towards affordable housing offsite. In terms of how that's ultimately delivered, that's obviously something for other considerations on another day. But yeah, an offsite provision contribution is on offer.
Thank you. And Councillor Leslie Smetham, please.
Thank you. Would I be correct in thinking that the new residents here would be giving up a property elsewhere to downsize, perhaps? And also, can you identify what the demand might be for this type of property?
The property is rented out at the moment. As far as the demand is concerned, I understand there is a large demand for properties of this nature at the moment, hence the reason that our client sought advice before proceeding with the application, and I understand there is a demand for these types of properties at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't see any other members wishing to ask a question. I'd like to add one of my own, in which case, just picking up on the point that Councillor Holland raised over the affordable housing contribution. Could you explain how the 106,917 figure has been arrived at?
That's been explained in the affordable housing statements. There was an update sent to Paul Wakefield, which I don't know whether he wants to go into yesterday. We employed an affordable housing consultant who's done a full appraisal of the requirement and produced the figure which has been set out. Yeah, it's fully explained within the affordable housing statement.
Thank you. I'll take that up further with the officer. I don't see any further members wanting to ask a question, so if I could ask you to turn off your camera and microphone again, and we'll move on with the debate. So I think that is all the public speakers for this item. So if we could now go back to our planning officer, Paul Wakefield. Are there any issues that have been raised that you'd like to respond to?
Probably not at the moment. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from members in that case you would like to ask of our planning officer? Councillor Dean, please.
Yes, Mr. Wakefield, the 106,000, which has been mentioned a few times for affordable housing, are you happy with that figure? Because I'm not sure anywhere in the Prestbury area how you would buy 2 one-bedroom flats for 106,000, or is that not how it's calculated?
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, Chair, thank you. My question pertains similarly to the same thing, really. I was just having a look at the average price of houses, because obviously not being from the area, you've got to do a little bit of research. And I think they went from anything from 239,000 up to 850,000. Obviously, the latter being a penthouse, so I appreciate that's probably not the same. So for affordable housing in Prestbury, 106,000 isn't going to stretch very far. So I suppose my question is the same as the previous councillors, and is that significant enough? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smetham, please.
Thanks. I noticed that the strategic housing manager has no objections, but I want to ask the same question. Do we know what the demand is for 3-bedroom apartments in the Prestbury area?
Thank you, Councillor Smetham. Any further questions before I go back to Mr. Wakefield? No. So, Mr. Wakefield, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So yeah, I think they all related to affordable housing. I think the query. So I think I understand what members are saying, and I think that ultimately we have a policy that does allow off-site contributions in exceptional circumstances, and this sort of situation is an exceptional circumstance. The applicant has provided evidence to show that registered providers are not interested, have got no interest in taking units of this nature, given the sort of management fees and communal costs that can result for residents. So in that regard, we are, in terms of planning policy, we're happy to accept a financial contribution in lieu of on-site provision. Then it comes down to how much is an appropriate amount, which I think is the key point here. Now, what I would say is our housing team do have a methodology that's on our website in terms of how to calculate that amount, which does relate to what a registered provider would. potentially offer against an open market value. And the way in which it's been set out is at the bottom of page 50. And that mechanism, if you like, as is set out there, has been agreed or supported by our housing team, and they've not raised any objections to the particular contribution. So, and that contribution would, it would be secured by 106, but it would then be spent by our housing team as opposed to the planning department. So I'm not in a position to be able to say whether or not what that would get us. I can make assumptions, and I think that's where members are probably going, that 106,000 doesn't get you a lot in Prestbury. But then, actually obtaining a site in Prestbury is potentially hard enough. So it might be that I'm sort of speculating here, but potentially the contribution might have to, then be cascaded out, if you like. If no available sites are there within the ward boundary of the application, then we have to go out and look to provide sites elsewhere. So I can't, as I say, I can't confirm what that would get us, but all I can say is that we don't have an objection from housing. They set the criteria for how these contributions are calculated, and that's pretty much that's as much as I can say really at the moment, Chairman.
Thanks very much, Mr. Wakefield. I can see some other hands have gone up, so I will move on to further questions, starting with Councillor Harewood, please.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't want to get on to the business of speculation, but I don't see why people from Prestbury only want to live in Prestbury. So that is extremely speculative, that they come from Prestbury and they want to live there. That's not how life works. There's also been speculation about the traffic. It hasn't happened. How do you know? They don't know. It's a kind of assumption. I would like to go on to say that
we're still on questions at the moment.
The question is, how do you know? How do you know that the people in Prestbury would like to remain there, and what the housing needs are? Who knows this?
Thank you. Moving on, Councillor Mannion, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, I completely support Mr. Wakefield's comments regarding the off-site contribution regarding affordable housing. Cheshire East, I wouldn't say it's unique, but we have some extraordinarily variance in land and property prices over a very short distance. Because within a mile or so of this site is the Upton Priory estate, which is an old Macclesfield Borough Council estate with large numbers of flats and maisonettes, which are actually considerably below the market average, even for the town of Macclesfield when they come on the market. My question is, it's at the bottom of page 50, the last paragraph, and when he makes a reference to suitably worded, I presume that will include that the off-site contribution would be within the north and northwest Macclesfield area, rather than being just across Cheshire East. So again, is that what goes into the wording of these agreements? So the off-site contribution is actually used within a reasonable distance of the actual site that generates it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Manning. Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was just a question about the 30%, really. I noticed at the bottom of page 50, it does say 30%. So my question is, does the 106,000 relate to the 30% for affordable housing? I was just wanting that explained a little bit to me, that was all. If you could, thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On page 50, on the residential mix, it refers to 6 two-bedroom apartments, but the plans show that they are 3-bedroom. And then at the bottom of page 50, when it says about the calculation of the contribution, it refers to one-bed apartments. So I'm a little confused as to how the Section 106 money is being calculated. You know, is it on a one-bed, two-bed, three-bed apartment? I'd like some clarification. Thank you.
So I'll now go back to our planning officer, Mr. Wakefield, ask him to respond to some of those questions.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just where shall I start? Councillor Mannion's comment. In terms, yeah, as I referred to before, I think potentially it would be some kind of cascade where obviously the preference for providing the affordable units would be somewhere in Prestbury, but in the event that that doesn't happen, then it would gradually cascade out. So yeah, we wouldn't want to be securing a contribution on a site in Prestbury that then gets spent in Crewe or something like that. And I think the 106 can be worded in such a way to ensure that that eventuality doesn't happen, or at the very least as a very last case scenario. On the, yeah, there is a typo in terms of the residential mix. They were 6 3-bedroom apartments, as Councillor Braithwaite points out, so apologies for that. And then the contribution itself, although again we haven't, what again I'm speculating here, and I'll say something about that in a moment, but it appears that 1-bedroom bed apartments have been put forward as a, because I understand the majority of the demand within the Prestbury area to be for 1-bedroom apartments, and I imagine that's the reason why they've put forward 1-bed apartments in that particular case. On the contribution, I think Councillor Holland queried whether or not it was a 30% contribution. It was. So what would have happened, that it equates to 1.8 dwellings. Is 30% of 6 is 1.8, so it equates to 1.8 dwellings. But it's been calculated, the contribution's been calculated for ease as 2 dwellings and then factored down to the 1.8. So the 106,000 does relate to, is the proportionate contribution for 1.8 dwellings. I mean, on this point, I mean, if this point is a bit of a sticking point for members, then we could potentially look to defer the application and get more feedback from our housing team in terms of how the contributions calculated would be spent in the future. If, you know, I suppose I'm just putting that out there now, just for members to consider it should they wish to sort of go that way within the debate, but I'll leave it there for now, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wakefield. I think we should probably move on to the debate in that case. Can I have a volunteer to lead us? I think the nearest councillor is either Councillor Nicholas or one of our Macclesfield councillors, perhaps. Or indeed Councillor Holland, who's not a neighbouring councillor but may wish to lead us.
Yeah, I'm happy to lead if you'd like me to. Yeah, I've done a few calculations and maybe it's the wrong way to work it out, but in my mind, you know, I've looked at apartments here, 3-bedroom, because I estimated my last calculation on the 2-bedroom apartments when I found out that it's 3-bedroom. And your average is between £595,000 and £625,000 for a 3-bedroom apartment in Prestbury. So I've said, well, on average, £600,000 for an apartment. That's looking at 3.6 million, isn't it, for 6 apartments? So £106,000. I'm sorry, for me, that's just not right. It's a minimum. 30%, if it was a minimum, would be 180,000 if I've done my calculations correctly. So yeah, that is a sticking point for me, I'm afraid, at the moment. But I'm happy to listen to the whole debate. And if 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartments are a requirement of Prestbury, then I have no issue. I think the designs are fantastic. I think it complements the area, and it's certainly a better looking property than what's there at the moment. Apologies if I insult anybody by that, but that's an actual fact, I think. However, you know, if you're going to put in there that you're going to put this down to affordable housing and you're going to make a contribution, then you need to make a significant contribution, in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Somewhat unusually, I'm going to jump in here and say I fully agree with you, actually. I'm really struggling, and I'm going to be struggling to support this application purely on the basis of the affordable contribution that's before us. Yes, the first preference, of course, is to see that delivered on site, but where that's not possible, clearly a commuted sum is appropriate. But the commuted sum that's proposed here, in my view, simply isn't appropriate. It can be spent somewhere else, I understand that, but the point is that the profit is being raised in Prestbury, and it's being raised at Prestbury prices, and I just find just shy of 107,000 for supposedly 2 affordable dwellings completely unacceptable. And I won't be supporting, if that remains, unless there's a way that we can delegate that back for review, I won't be supporting this. Mr. Wakefield.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, all it is really, just to sort of reiterate my previous comments, that if members wanted to defer the application, I'm more than happy to take it back to our housing team and get more detailed comments and more detailed feedback on the specifics of this particular proposal and the nature of the calculation that's been provided. Yeah, it was just to set out that potential option again, because I think it would help if the application was being viewed negatively. Then I think it would be helpful for us to be able to at least bottom out this particular issue, and then be clear on all the facts in terms of the affordable housing contribution, and know whether or not it is exactly how it's justified, and whether housing are truly happy with the particular position that's been put forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Wakefield. Councillor Mannion, please.
Yeah, I entirely agree. The contribution is pitiful, and all it does is reinforce the unaffordability of many parts of our part of Cheshire East for many families regarding accommodation. However, I suspect what the applicant has done, they've read carefully our current affordable housing policy as part of our local plan, and they have calculated an amount which is of the minimum they think they can get away with, and that's a business decision by them. But I entirely agree with you, Chair, and Councillor Holland. It is a pitifully small amount, and whilst I quite like the proposal from a planning perspective, the affordable housing one, I don't know. Can we proceed today with and ask that the affordable housing element is determined by yourself in consultation with the officers, or do we need to consider the whole application in the round this afternoon?
I think the recommendation, or sorry, not the recommendation, the advice from officers, Councillor Mannion, is that we either debate and determine this in the round today based on what's before us, or we defer it now to enable officers to go back to our housing team to, how can I put it, investigate further the sum that has been proposed.
Can I propose that then, please, Chair?
You're proposing a deferral, Councillor?
I'm proposing a deferral on that ground. Now, if there's any other key issues from other members of the committee other than the affordable housing contribution, obviously I'm happy to take them on board, but that's my primary reason for proposing it.
Thank you, Councillor Manning. We'll take views from other members and then take a vote. So, Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, I was going to propose, but having been proposed by Councillor Mannion, I will second that. And for me, it is easily the main issue, and it's some minor concerns, but it's the main issue is this paltry sum.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. So that's proposed and seconded. Councillor Puddicombe.
Yes, I was going to second it. as well. I would not want to see it defeated, the application turned down this afternoon, just on the basis of the affordable housing. I mean, on Councillor Holland's calculations, it is a risible amount, certainly. But I think members do need to appreciate the massive diversity in property prices within small areas within our borough. And as Councillor Mannion pointed out, within a mile or so of this application, there's the Upton estate, where I know investment is happening shortly by Cheshire Peaks and Plains, and the money could easily be spent there. But I would certainly be happy to support deferral for more information on the affordable housing.
Thank you, Councillor Puddicombe. And again, to reiterate my view on this, yes, I accept everything you've just said, but it's where the profit's being raised, and sufficient profit it would be raised on this development for a greater contribution than is being offered. I'll go back to Mr. Wakefield.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one other thing to add in terms of any potential deferral. It would be to obviously to go back to the housing team, but also to go back to the applicant should we identify that further information is required from them as well. So there might be some onus on the applicant to provide additional details as part of the deferral.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Wakefield. I would like to then take the vote on deferral, but I can see Councillor Harewood wanted to come in, so I'll just take this one contribution and then move to the vote. Councillor Harewood.
Thank you, Chair. I will state I completely support the application, because the loss of that large house that is rented and can accommodate 6 people, I think I support. I will support the deferral on just the grounds of the contribution, but on every other thing I see 6 apartments are so much better than a large house that will possibly be half empty, hardly used, a lovely part of Macclesfield Prestbury border and needed around there. But I will support the deferral just on the grounds of the contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harewood. So I'd like to move to the vote then now. Sorry. I've just had some feedback. So I'll take the vote now. It's been proposed by Councillor Mannion, seconded by Councillor Dean for deferral, seeking further clarification on the calculation of the affordable contribution. So I'll take the vote as usual by roll call. Please indicate whether you are for, against or not voting on the proposal of deferral. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Dean. Councillor Mannion, we can hear your phone going off. Councillor Findlow, please.
He's not in, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, yes, of course, he's declared. Councillor Harewood. Councillor Harewood.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Yes, in approval of deferral, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McFarlane.
For.
Councillor Mannion.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Puddicombe.
For.
Councillor Smetham.
For.
And myself, Councillor Brown, also for. So that's unanimous with the absence of Councillor Findlow, who's declared. So that's clearly deferred for further information. Thank you, members. So we'll now move on to the next application, which is item 8, application 20/3684M. Oh, of course, yes. Apologies. We'll just get Councillor Findlow back into the meeting before.
Right, I'm back. What did you decide, Chairman?
It's deferred.
Okay.
Thank you. So application 20/3684M is for the change of use of an existing hotel, C1, to sui generis, a house in multiple occupation and 2 residential apartments, C3, at the Longview Hotel, 51 to 55 Manchester Road, Knutsford, on behalf of Masood Ahui, of Longview Hotel. And I'd like to now invite our planning officer, Paul Wakefield, to present this application.
Sorry, Chairman, just finding my mouse. Right, I'll just share my screen. So, right, so this is the, sorry about that, the Longview Hotel in Knutsford, on Manchester Road in Knutsford, very close to the town centre, which is just, what, probably 200 or 300 yards along Manchester Road. And it's the application site that we're looking at is edged red there, a mid-terrace property, as we say, currently in use as a hotel. Just to show it in wider context. So there it is, Knutsford Town Centre, Canute Place, just over on the bottom right of the screen there, with the heath opposite, area of open space. But you can see it's located in a largely built-up area which extends out from the town centre. So this is the application site. It's the one with the scaffolding, as the slide states. Number 55, excuse me. Number 51 is also part of the hotel, as is one of the plots on Victoria Street, which is the subject of a later application. And then again, just another view of the junction with Manchester Road and Victoria Street, just to get an understanding of the local roads. And looking at the back, so this is the application site on the left-hand side, with this flat roof structure to the back, 2-storey, and then there's 3-storey within the main building at the front there. Bit of external amenity space as well. Then looking from Victoria Street, you can just see the heath beyond, on the other side of Manchester Road on the right hand side there. And then you can, if you use that red, quite red gable, it's the one next to it. So this lower structure is part of the application site, which is where the spiral staircase on the last photograph was leading from. So the proposed site plan, there's no external alterations. One minor external alteration comprising a glazed, obscurely glazed screen, but generally the form of the building remains the same. Some external amenity area provided in the green hatched area for residents, but otherwise it's pretty much as is. Existing basement and ground floor, not particularly visible on these plans, but they should be within your key plans as well. But again, just to compare that to the proposed, which on the next slide, so same format, but we've got number of bedrooms, one bedroom on the ground floor here, a couple of communal lounges. Just to clarify, this was the area where the house, in the report, there's reference to the Housing Standards Officer raising concerns about light and ventilation to bedrooms and communal lounges. Well, the bedroom that was concerned was removed, and then the light and ventilation aspect remained for the communal lounges, which are these two rooms here. Over here, there is a glazed, it's got a glazed roof light, so which allows lighting. I think it's a glazed roof effectively, so allows quite a bit of lighting. And then there's a window retained on the ground floor, albeit an internal window, to benefit from that light as well into the adjacent communal lounge, and appropriate ventilation, mechanical ventilation where necessary, will also be utilised for each of these rooms, which does address the concerns of the Housing Standards Officer, which were raised in the original report, but I think we did cover it in the update as well. And then again, first and second floors. Sorry, just to go back, just to highlight, this is one of the apartments here. On the ground floor, which is accessed here with living accommodation and bedrooms, living room, kitchen, etc. on the flat roof structure to the rear as well. And then up a level, that's the existing first and second floor plan. And again, as proposed, so it retains the same footprint, but then bedrooms proposed. Apartment, the labelling on the diagram has been slightly amended since the key plans were issued, just to show that the apartment does have one bedroom and then separate kitchen, dining, living area as well as the bathroom on this left-hand side of the first floor. This is the area where there is the only external alteration, which is provision of this glazed screen to prevent direct overlooking between these two windows, just in the interest of privacy. But that is the only external alteration. This area being that's the area above the communal lounge where the glazed roof is. And then again, just to reiterate and sort of put it in context, the lack of external alterations, you can just see the existing and proposed front elevations on the left-hand side. So existing, proposed on the front, and then on the right-hand side we've got existing and proposed rear. As you can see, very little, in fact, no external alterations whatsoever. And as set out in the report, Chairman, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wakefield. So I'll now move on to our public speakers on this item, and I'd like to invite the first of those, Councillor Stuart Gardner, who is the ward councillor. Councillor Gardner, could I ask you to prepare to address the committee? You have 5 minutes and there may be questions afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we go any further, I would like to seek clarification that this application does not relate to 55 Manchester Road, but solely to 51, please, because the description of the application and the plan submitted are at odds with each other. And I think it's important, as a point of order, that the members of the committee are fully aware of what they are looking at.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. The address will be as given on the application form, but I will seek clarity from our planning officer on that point.
Okay. Right, I wish to address the committee why I object to this proposal on 4 points. The first is the character of the area. The second is the residential amenity of the prospective occupiers. Thirdly, the residential amenity of the adjoining properties. And fourthly, parking. With regard to the character of the area, the officer's report suggested that the hotel and a house in multiple occupation are not dissimilar in character. I would concur that that is true with regards to the physicality of the building. However, the use of these two properties, the use of the building in these two cases would be entirely different. The hotel currently has its shared rooms in number 55, which is not the subject of this application, I believe, and has only bedrooms in 51, which means that all the activity is just bedroom activity. That is not the same as the activity that you would expect from somebody's main dwelling. This is going to be somebody's home. They are spending all their time in these small rooms. So there is a distinct difference in character. And it is important to note that actually, with the exception of the hotel, everything else in this vicinity is in private residential ownership as single dwelling houses. Secondly, with regard to the residential amenity of the prospective occupiers, I believe this council recently adopted a policy document, which is out to consultation, to consider the issue of houses in multiple occupation. And part of that is to ensure that those people who live in these properties are given a good quality of accommodation. The room sizes and the contrived way in which fenestration and opening have been created in the proposal before you does not comply with what that policy document seeks to achieve. And I appreciate at the moment it is only out to consultation. It is not adopted policy, but it is out to consultation. That means that we are asking people to live in below standard accommodation. This is not the 1840s. It is not even 1948, when half of the housing stock had been destroyed by the Luftwaffe. It is the 21st century, and we should be providing good quality accommodation for everybody. Turning to the quality of residential amenity, this property is in between two other residential properties, that's houses, which means that the adjacent walls will impart noise and disturbance, which will be detrimental to the residential amenity of those occupiers. If you put a bedroom next to a bedroom, that is equal. If you put a bedroom next to a living room, you are asking the person in the bedroom to put up with the noises from the living room and vice versa. And finally, parking in this part of Manchester Road is at a premium. There is a council-imposed parking restrictions on a number of the junctions along this way, which means people who live here have difficulty in parking. And there is also a bus stop very close to here, which also takes up what would otherwise be on-street parking. There is only on-street parking in these locuses. The hotel does have some off-street parking, but that does not form part of the application site. So those are the reasons why I'm against this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Are there any questions from members, please? Councillor Dean.
Yes, thanks very much, Councillor Gardner. You talk about the special planning document, which is out for consultation on houses of multiple occupation, and you said that this particular application does not comply with said document, which is out for consultation. And you mentioned particularly room size and fenestration. Can I just read something from the planning officer's report? Of the rooms proposed, the smallest
Should be a question, Councillor Dean.
12.4 square metres, as opposed to 10 point something, which is the minimum in the document. So how does this house not comply with the document?
I'm not convinced that those measurements are accurate, but obviously I have not got the benefit of having a paper document that I can measure off, so I can't confirm that. But certainly, a number of the rooms, the bathroom has taken the integral bathroom will take a significant portion of the built area, which leaves probably enough for a bed, a desk, and a wardrobe, but not much else.
Okay.
And this is somebody's living room; it's not their bedroom.
Thank you.
Councillor Smethurst, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder, Councillor Gardner, if you're able to say whether or not the current hotel is used by social services to accommodate the homeless or people of that nature.
My understanding is that it may be have been the case. At the moment, I believe this part of the building is unsafe, and so therefore it is not subject to anybody staying in there. My understanding is the hotel ceased trading, certainly isn't taking restaurant bookings, though I did see somebody in the doorway of the other building, which is part of the hotel, which is the subject of the second application.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions, members? It doesn't look like it, so Councillor Gard. Oh, sorry, right at the last minute, Councillor Findlow.
I don't think mention was made of the impact on the conservation area. Have you a view on that?
Well, the built form is going to be unchanged, Councillor Findlow, but the problem is that when you have a building's use changes, that has an impact on the character of the area, which would include the character of the conservation area, which is, and the description says, a predominantly residential one. Well, we're looking at a pseudo-residential use being proposed, not a residential use. There's a reason why it is in a use class all on its own, and it is not grouped in with other residential properties, and that is because of the character of these forms of development.
Thank you.
Councillor Mannion, please.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Gardner, you're obviously a lot more familiar with this location than we are. I just drive past it fairly regularly on the way to Warrington. But the part of the building that is the subject of this application, what is the full occupancy of that? You say it's bedrooms at the moment. Yeah, so if it was fully occupied, how many people would be sleeping there overnight in the bit that's subject to this application?
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe that there is limited alteration to the internal layout, save for one of the bedrooms being used as a kitchen and another forming part of a communal area, which is, of course, the area that has the glazed roof. So that at the moment is obviously not occupied by any visitors. My understanding is that when the hotel was operating, that primarily they would use the rooms in number 55, which is on the corner, which was the original hotel building, and that they used both the Victoria Street property and number 55 for, I suppose, when they were more full. So on occasions when the hotel was operating, it was those hotels, because the dining room for the hotel is in number 55. So as a guest, you would want to stay nearer so once they'd filled those rooms up, they would then put people into 51 and the property on Victoria Street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If I could now ask you to turn off your camera and microphone, Councillor Gardner, and we'll
That's
move.
fine. I thought you were addressing Councillor Mannion, so I will turn mine off. Thank you.
I'll address both of you. So if I could now invite our next speaker, Jonathan Martin, who is the agent for the applicant, to address the committee. And Mr. Martin, you have 3 minutes, and there may be questions afterwards. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for giving me this opportunity today to speak to you about the change of use of Victoria Street and Manchester Road. I work on behalf of Masood and Lulu Ahui, who are the applicants and own Victoria Street and Manchester Road, formerly known as the Longview Hotel. Masood and Lulu are local people who have lived in Knutsford for the past 25 years and operated a Longview Hotel for the last 18 years, providing accommodation. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, their business has been totally decimated, which has put them into a position of financial difficulty. What we are looking to do with Victoria Street and Manchester Road is diversify their business by obtaining new planning permission to obtain HMO licenses where they can continue to serve the local community by providing high-end and but affordable accommodation. We have an extensive mailing list of professionals who have expressed a strong interest in renting these rooms. These are people who work locally in Knutsford and its surrounding areas that will ultimately look to work and pay into the local community. To give you an overview of South Manchester Homes, who will be managing this development, this business is owned by myself and my sister Emma. We're a local family-run estate agency, and we've worked for the applicants and already manage a number of their properties for them for the last 20 years. All of the applicants' properties are offered to a high standard and let to professional people. We as a business do not accept benefits. Victoria Street and Manchester Road would be dealt with in the same way by going through a thorough referencing process to make sure any potential tenants are the best possible people. These tenants will sign an assured short-hold tenancy agreement, which will set out the terms and conditions of the let, and I will be managing the tenancies to ensure the obligations under the agreement are met by the tenants. South Manchester Homes will be managing Victoria Street and Manchester Road. They will refurbish to a high standard and will only be let to professional people. We believe that you should grant these licenses as it will give the applicants the opportunity to diversify the business and avoid financial difficulty. It will not be too dissimilar to what is already there, being a hotel, but offered to people on a long-term basis. They will become local people, working locally, paying into the local community. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Could I ask, are there any questions from members, please? Councillor Smetham, please.
Given what you've just said, can you give us some reassurance about levels of satisfaction or not from neighbouring properties to your property working on the same basis, please?
What do you mean by that?
Do you have a high record of complaints, if I'm going to?
No, not at all.
Do you have complaints at all?
Not in relation to, no is the honest answer. No, I don't. I can't, that's the truth. No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dean, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Martin, you mentioned that you were going to get the best possible people in. I'm just thinking as a landlord myself and the laws around tenancy. I do appreciate at the moment you can still specify no benefits, but everything else would be under human rights law, so it'd be very difficult to actually pick and choose on somebody who is not on benefits.
I can only go with what we can do at this moment in time, and at this moment in time, ultimately, it's up to the landlord who they rent their property to, and you know who they want to accept. I can't comment on what might happen and what might change in the future. I think that's something that ultimately would affect the whole letting market, not just Manchester Road and Victoria Street.
Thank you. Councillor Harewood, please.
Unmute myself. Thank you. I just want to be sure that Mr. Martin said he will only rent these HMOs to professional people. Did you say this?
I did,
professional.
Yeah. When I say professional, what I mean is people who are, working and can go through our criteria from passing our referencing structure process.
Oh, thank you, sir. Because it doesn't work like that. Thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mannion, please. Councillor Mannion.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, I presume you're aware of the draft special planning document that the council's got out to consultation till I think it's either Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve, relating to houses in multiple occupation.
No, I'm not.
Oh, right, you're not. Well, it may. I won't proceed then, because it's not worth asking the question if you support it.
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just some clarification on the two self-contained apartments on the plan.
Sorry, did you say the two self-contained apartments?
Yeah, that are on the application. On the plan, they don't appear to have any kitchen. What makes them self-contained?
So the two apartments that are in the building have kitchens within the living room. So you've got, in effect, a living room stroke kitchen area, and then you've got a double bedroom, and then you have a separate shower room. They're completely self-contained one-bedroom flats. They're lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't clear from the plan. Thank you.
No, they're completely self-contained.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Finlow, please.
Can I ask, please, is the hotel operation permanently closed or partially reopening, or what's the situation, please?
It's exactly as I've just said to you, in what I've just said. The hotel, unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, has ceased trading. And they're in a situation now where they have got to diversify their business because of the world we live in, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to diversify it.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I don't see any further questions, so if you could now turn off your camera and microphone, do feel free to remain in the meeting. And
thank you.
I will thank you, and I'll now go back to our planning officer, Mr. Wakefield, to ask if there are any points raised that he would like to respond to.
Thank you, Chairman. Not a great deal, but just to address Councillor Gardner's initial query about what the application relates to. I think the address of the property is the Longview Hotel, 51 to 55 Manchester Road. But the actual development itself does solely relate to 51, so the change of use and the site edge red is solely around the property known as number 51 Manchester Road. And then just in terms of couple of additional comments that were raised in terms of the character of the area and residential amenity standards. I think it's just worth just to note again, really, the fact that the building is an existing hotel, not an existing dwelling, and so in terms of the character of the area, we've already got a non-residential use in a residential area, and then in terms of the living conditions for the future occupants, just again to reiterate that housing standards, our own housing standards team don't have any objections to the proposals as now submitted and amended, as I showed in the presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wakefield. So are there any questions from members back to our planning officer? I can see Councillor Dean and then Councillor Smetham to begin with. Thank you. Councillor Dean.
Quick question, Mr. Wakefield. There is currently nowhere on any of the plans a fire escape. Should the required licence, because it does require a licence for this HMO, say we'll only give you a licence when you've got a fire escape, does that mean it has to come back for a separate planning permission, or would that be permitted development?
Thank you. Councillor Smetham, please.
Thank you. I have some concern about the control that might be possible over residents at this property, and I'm not up to date with the latest standards, I'm afraid, but is there some comfort you can give us as to, I know we're going to have professional people here, but if there is control over that, then I'm not too sure about the situation that might evolve. Does that make sense?
It sort of makes sense to me, so I'm sure our officer will make sense of it as well. Thank you, Councillor Smetham. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wonder how a communal lounge can also be a thoroughfare as on the proposed ground floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Nicholas, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's just an issue about parking, really. You're saying these are going to be professional people living there. Well, most of those professional people, I presume, will have cars. And I just want to know and obviously it says no off-street parking is proposed. Can you give me a clarification on the rules about that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. So now I see no further members. Oh yes, sorry, Councillor Finlow's just put his hand up. So I'll take your question, Councillor Finlow, and then go back to Mr. Wakefield.
Yeah, I'm unclear, Chairman, on how we can guarantee, or how it can be guaranteed, that the residents are going to be, in quotes, professional people. I'm not sure or clear how that can be guaranteed at all. Indeed, can it be?
Thank you. So, Mr. Wakefield, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So Councillor Dean's comment about the fire escape, I think it would depend on exactly what was involved and the extent of any changes that would be required. But yeah, I suppose potentially a new application could be required should a fire escape be needed. But it's without knowing exactly what it is, it's difficult to confirm either way. Councillor Smetham's comment, query about the control over residents, which I'm assuming is potentially linked to what Councillor Finlow's just raised in terms of the potential control over the occupancy of professional people, or which yeah we can't control. It's like being able to control who moves in next door to you. It can't be done. So no, I can't give you any comfort in terms of other than what the applicant said. I can't add any more to that, but we can't add any specific controls in that regard. The communal lounge, I suppose only one of there are two communal lounges. Sorry, this is Councillor Braithwaite's question about the communal lounge and it being a thoroughfare as well. Only one, there are two lounges, only one of which would serve as a through route as well. But I suppose it's not uncommon for in dwellings to have through routes through a dining room into a kitchen, for example. And again, I just sort of refer back to our housing standards comments and their no objection to the proposals as they currently are. And then in terms of parking standards, might be a query for Neil perhaps, or Neil might be able to add a bit more detail to it, but I think the standards generally are, so for 1 bedroom it would be 1 space per dwelling. So one bedroom, 1 space is the standard set out in the local plan.
Sorry, was that it, Paul?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Just before you go, I've got a supplementary question. So I understand that you're saying we, as a local planning authority, can't control who the future occupants may be, but that surely the owner of the property, they can control who they choose to let, rent or sell various bits of the property to.
I expect so, yeah. Yeah, it's their prerogative, yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Fine, thank you. So I'll take questions from Councillor Holland and then Councillor Mannion, and then perhaps invite Mr Jones to come back on the question around parking provision. So Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just having a little look through because I was curious about, and I'll admit now, I'm not in favour of HMOs. I think they can be detrimental to the area, and I think you need to be very careful. However, I think Mr Martin has demonstrated the type of HMO here that he's proposing. It's quite substantial, actually. Now, my question to Mr Wakefield is, has this development already been developed? Because with Mr Martin saying that it's going to be managed by South Manchester Homes, I took the liberty of having a little look, and South Manchester Homes do have a very similar property that's available in Knutsford on Manchester Road. And so I was just curious whether we know, do we have any indication as to whether this has already been developed and they're going for HMO status? Because the property that I'm looking at is actually very reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mannion, please.
Yeah, Chair, I'd just like to say any letting of any property, whoever the landlord is, must also comply with the Equality Act. And you must not engage in direct or indirect discrimination against any group with characteristics as listed in the Equality Act. So I'll just leave that there. But the control issue, it's the management of the premises. That is not a planning issue as far as I can understand. What we're dealing with today is what falls within the remit of development control planning. And therefore, and what I would say is, I've come across professionals who knew how to knot their tie and didn't drop their H's, whose behaviour was completely antisocial. So I think we need to be very careful before we go down that road. We're looking at the planning aspect here, and therefore, I know it's a statement, but I would ask members to steer away from the control aspect and to confine themselves to the planning issues today.
Thank you. I'll go back to Mr Wakefield, and then I think we need to move on to the debate, which we seem to have started to move into already.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it was just Councillor Holland's query about whether or not the development's already started and has already commenced. Not that I'm aware of, but I can't guarantee. But as I say, I'm not aware that it has begun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Wakefield. So I'd like to move on to the debate now, and I'm fairly sure that Councillor Dean is the nearest ward councillor, so perhaps he would like to lead us in the debate.
Yes, I've got nothing against HMOs per se, and I've certainly got nothing against this particular one, except I'm concerned in terms of listening to Councillor Mannion's rather school mistressy instruction to us all to focus on planning issues. I'm concerned about parking and lack of same, because if you look at the number of theoretical people who could be in here, it's 11 or 12, depending on whether one of the bedrooms is wrongly notated. And that is already a nightmare area for the people who live down there, have nowhere to park. So I really am concerned. Let's just use the term professional, meaning people who are employed. Most people who are employed these days will have to go some distance for work, not necessarily walking or cycling. So there is going to be a demand for cars. I'm concerned very much about the parking. Otherwise, I'm satisfied on the other issues that did concern me initially.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. You've just raised your hand again, by the way. Councillor Mannion, thank you.
Could I just ask a question of Councillor Dean? Councillor Gardner mentioned a bus stop outside restricting on-street parking. Is there still a bus route past along this road? I'm not familiar with it, but perhaps you might be.
It's a bit difficult to keep up with buses at the moment, but certainly there is a bus stop there that has been used recently. Whether it's it's still being used this week, I'm not quite sure.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. So I now have Councillor Smetham and then Councillor Harewood. Thank you.
Are we into the debate now, Councillor Chairman?
We are indeed.
Good. Just continuing my theme of earlier, and I don't know if any of my colleagues can help on this one. I've come across now recently discrimination by residents against residents on diversity grounds, and there is definitely something to be desired on housing association policy, where the result has been that the discriminated against has moved away and the person undertaking the discrimination has remained in their property when that party who left didn't really want to. And in one case, it appears that this person's livelihood is locally and family are locally, who may also have to move away. And I'm just hoping that someone can help me with this, because it does seem to be an issue that we should concern ourselves with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harewood.
Thank you, Chair. I will follow Councillor Smetham by saying profession and Councillor Mannion possibly, that professional people do not necessarily behave any differently per se. But I'm concerned that I'm hearing of the professionalism of people and the work they may do, and then they have no cars. I'm trying to, how do you say, you're a professional person, but you have no car, so you wouldn't come here. I'm really pained by the supporting of houses that are not called homes. And I cannot support this application because I find the whole thing so contradictory, where I find that this proliferation of HMOs brutalizes so many notions. We spend a lot of time talking about character, and then we are perpetrating the character by making these substantial multiple living with multiple use of toilets and kitchens and lounges, and then we perpetrate this kind of innate brutalizing of people. And on those grounds, I find it very, very difficult to support the whole thing. I'm sorry, the whole thing.
Thank you, Councillor Harewood. Councillor Murphy, please.
Well, I think a professional person is anybody, any Tom, Dick and Harry and Mary. So it doesn't mean a lot to me when you use that phrase. What I do know, though, is that a lot of people, well, I don't know, they say a lot of people, but there are people who do need, in emergencies, urgency situations, need to get accommodation quickly. Then when I say quickly, I don't mean just for an overnight stay, but I mean for somebody who might want to be thrown out of the family, for example, and they want to be got to move into a single person flat accommodation. They want decent accommodation of a kind of not quite hotel level, but a reasonable level. And we're here to talk about the planning issue. Is this building, is this sort of hotel type short-term accommodation tenancy fitting in that area. The question of parking, for example, people around in Macclesfield, in Disley, can't park their cars outside their house and have to walk some distance to get into the car. So I think we should go straight to put it. It's a straightforward case. It's a recommendation that it be approved. I've not heard anything yet that says there's bad planning reasons on it. I know there've been attempts to portray a bad situation, but I've not been persuaded. So I would move straight away that it should be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I'll take that as a formal proposal in favour of approval. Is that seconded at this time, please? I'm not seeing anyone indicating, so we'll continue the debate. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smetham.
Well, I'm finding this quite difficult, but I think it would be extremely unkind and cruel to be denying anyone the possibility of somewhere to live. And this seems to me to be an ideal opportunity to go with this application. So I'm hoping for the best, but I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Smetham. Just make a note of that, and then Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would just say, apart from the parking, I think I'm with this. I mean, the one that I'm looking at is a very similar type of property, which is offering a one-bedroom apartment to let. It certainly isn't cheap by the standards where I'm from, but I don't live in Knutsford. So I think colleagues who are from the area and the locality would tell me whether 825 per calendar month is a going rate or not. But other than the parking, I'm favouring on the favourable side of this one at the moment, but I will listen to the rest of the debate before I decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. I must admit I find myself in a similar position really with this. I have got concerns over the parking. I can appreciate that not everybody will come to live in a sustainable location in possession of a vehicle. But what seems to be being suggested is that none of the prospective residents will come with a vehicle, which I'm unconvinced by. The question I have in my mind, which balances against that, is what parking provision is in place for the existing hotel at the moment? Is there currently parking provision within the curtilage of the site, which is being removed, or is there already no parking? And I suspect that would probably sway me. Perhaps the local ward member could respond to that in a moment. So Councillor Smetham again, and then Councillor Holland, please.
I've just consulted with my oracle indoors, who happens to have stayed at the Longview Hotel when he first moved here for business, and at that time was quite a number of years ago, but as far as I know, and as he says, there was no difficulty parking at that time because there is a lot of parking around the area, and people come into town to park there and so on. So there is, it's sufficient, but I would like to hear what Councillor Dean says as well.
Well, I can see that Mr. Jones is wishing to come in on this, so I'll go to him first and then go to Councillor Dean and Councillor Holland. So Mr. Jones, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think just on the parking, I see that's been raised. Both this application 51 and 55 is really, we should be looking at those together. There is limited parking on the other side, very limited parking. There's only about 5 spaces in total. This particular site has no spaces whatsoever, so it would never meet the standards. We could never, if you apply the standards that Councillor Gard referred to, we would be looking at something like 12 spaces for this site, and we could never provide them on the site. So we could never provide a standard. So in terms of looking at the application, we have to decide whether there's any harm from having no parking on the site. I think members need to bear in mind it was the hotel that had already limited parking and operated reasonably well without causing any major harm issues in terms of parking. I appreciate there is some on-street parking, but is this application going to be materially worse than the hotel? I think that's what we looked at, and we came to the conclusion that given it was reasonably close to the town centre and there is some on-street parking around the area, then this proposal would be acceptable. But I take members' points about not meeting standards. We'll never meet the standards on this application. Thanks, Chair.
Mr. Jones, just before you go, could I ask a supplementary? Would an HMO of this nature qualify for a residence parking scheme?
We wouldn't have a residence parking scheme in this part of the area, Chair. I don't recall any schemes that we've put in place for HMOs and residence parking schemes. I might be wrong. I have to talk to my traffic management colleagues, but I don't believe we've got any unless you know of any, Chair.
No, thank you. Councillor Holland, please.
Well, I think my question has just been answered, because I was going to say, is there availability for permits, or is it all free parking? You know, a lot of the streets around by, and let's face it, let's look into the future here. Are parking restrictions potentially going to come in, or is that not something that's necessary in Knutsford? If so, will parking permits be available? So there's a couple of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Findlay, please.
I seem to recollect, Chairman, we were told earlier on that the hotel, when it was operational, did have some limited parking somewhere around the back, perhaps. And what's happening to that parking?
Okay, are there any further contributions? And I think I'll need to go back to one of our officers for clarity on this. Okay, so either Mr. Jones or Mr. Wakefield, please.
Go on, Neil.
Sorry, Paul. You can take it if you want to. Oh, I'll take it.
I was just looking at the Google Maps, and if you on the site Edge Blue, where number 55 is on the corner of Victoria Street and Manchester Road, there's a bin store located, and there is parking along there for probably about maybe 5 or 6 cars. But that would serve the existing hotel, which is being retained at number 55. If I show you, let me share my screen. Just bear with me. So here, this is the area that is currently car parking, but will be retained by the hotel, whereas the application site is here. So this site itself doesn't have car parking. This site within the site Edge Blue has some, and then this area here, which relates to the part of the hotel on Victoria Street, which is the subject of the next application, there's also other parking. But that has consent for 2 dwellings on that particular area there. So in answer to your question, the application site does not have its own car parking. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, I'm still a little confused, if I'm honest.
Well, let me do it.
Could you put the image back up again?
If I show you, yeah. Sorry, just bear with me one moment to get a better view. So there's this area here. So this is the application site in red. This was the other part of the hotel that isn't related to this application, as we've clarified, and will be retained as a hotel. And then, so that's Victoria Street, and then looking from Victoria Street, it's here, but actually that image differs from what was on Google. I think there's very little car parking, if any. And if there is, it's only in this edge blue, and it would relate to the hotel anyway, not the application site.
So the availability of off-road parking is restricted to the application that we'll discuss after this one. Am I right?
No, because this parking here isn't related to either of the two application sites.
Right.
So this is the hotel that's going to stay as a hotel. The third site, which will be considered as part of the next application, does have parking next to it, but as I say, that does have consent for additional dwellings on that plot.
Okay, thank you. I've got one more contribution, and then some while ago now, this was proposed and seconded for approval. So after Councillor Nicholas, I'd like to go to the vote. Councillor Nicholas, please.
No, I just wanted to say on page 57, in the summary, it says no off-street parking is proposed for the HMO, and actually the same thing is said on the next application as well. And I'm afraid I will not be supporting this application.
Thank you. So, as I said, it has been proposed by Councillor Murphy and seconded by Councillor Smetham for approval. So I would like to now take the vote. Please indicate whether you are for, against or not voting on the proposal for approval. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
Yes, Chairman, I will also be voting against on the basis of the parking issue.
Councillor Findlow.
Against.
Councillor Harewood.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
On the parking issue alone, I am against.
Councillor McFarlane.
Against you.
Councillor Mannion.
Against.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Nicholas.
On parking alone, against.
Councillor Smetham.
For.
Thank you. And finally, myself, Councillor Brown, against. So we've lost Councillor Puddicombe for this item, so I make that nine against and 2 for. So that proposal for approval is lost. So we'll now need a counter proposal, which we'll need to vote on. Councillor Dean, please.
May I propose, Mr. Chairman, that we go against the officer's recommendation on this application and refuse the application on the basis of a lack of any parking provision, whatsoever, which is against our own standards, but also is extremely difficult in that particular area of Knutsford, which is always fully parked up.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Nicholas, please.
I mean, I could almost second that, apart from the last bit, and just mention the actual area. I would just say it goes against our own rules. But if Councillor Dean would accept that, I would second his motion.
Happy to accept that, Chair.
So I'm taking that as a proposal to refuse on the grounds of being contrary to parking standards in the local plan strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, proposed by Councillor Dean, seconded by Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Mannion, please.
Yeah, perhaps Councillor Dean can help us on this. Is there anything in the Knutsford neighbourhood plan in which this is seriously at odds with?
Yeah, yes, there is. I can't remember whether it's T2 or T4 in the neighbourhood plan, but it's one of them that requires any, well, I suppose it says new properties, and I don't suppose you could actually call this a new property, it's just a change of use, but it does require parking to be provided, which is in line with the Cheshire East standards. Probably doesn't apply to this because it's just a change of use of an existing building, but it's an interesting point.
So on that, I will then just go back to, I can see a hand up, but I'm not sure who it is.
It's me, Chairman.
Oh, right. Sorry, Mrs. Baxter. Over to you.
Can I just ask if Neil can come back on that that motion to refuse on parking grounds? Can we get his thoughts?
I was just about to go back to officers, but by all means, Mr. Jones, please offer us any advice that you're able to do.
Oh, thanks, Chair. I understand what members have said. Yes, it's against our parking standards, and it is in my view probably a reasonable reason for refusal, given the on-street parking situation. So yes, we didn't. It wasn't our preference to refuse this application. We thought it was acceptable, but if members are minded to refuse it on their lack of parking, that's something we could probably support. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. That's very, very helpful. So I was about to say I'll go to the vote, but I can see Councillor Harewood has raised a hand, so I'll just take this contribution and then go to the vote. Councillor Harewood.
Thank you, Chair. I wondered if I could bring in the character of the Knutsford Town Centre. Is that a planning? This change of character to proliferate to this HMO, that because another one is coming up, this number of HMOs, although the other one hasn't come, can I go on the character of the town centre? Because we spoke a lot about character this morning. Is that a reason for refusing? Because I think it is, but I rest on your legislation.
Well, I would certainly say character is a planning issue, Councillor Harewood. Whether it would be valid in this case when there's no external alteration to the building, I'm not sure, but we'll take advice from the professional. And on that point, bringing Mr. Wakefield again.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this relates back to Councillor Gardner's comments at the start, really, as well. But I think, like you say, yeah, character is certainly a planning issue, but the character of a town centre is characterised by a lot of varied uses, and so I think identifying harm to that particular character in this case would be difficult. Added to that, it's as we've said, we've currently got a hotel in a residential area within the town centre, and this is changing to more of a residential use in a residential area in the town centre or close to the town centre. So yeah, I'd be cautious in terms of adding character as a reason for refusal. But just on the reason for refusal that we do have, can I just clarify? Did you take off the reference to the parking issues in the particular area? The reason I ask is that our parking standards in the appendices of the local plan, where they relate to, they relate to HMOs in the C4 use class, so those that are smaller than the one that's currently proposed. But on that, there is a footnote linked to it where it states negotiate by site on reduced provision, which suggests that on each particular site would be looked at on its merits. And so I'm just wondering whether members are certain they want to either, well, what if it was removed, or whether they want to put it in, or do you know what I mean? The reference to the local parking issues in the area might be relevant. I suppose that's the point that I'm making. And I think, was it Councillor Dean that raised it or made it relevant?
If you're suggesting it might be actually better to have that specific comment back in to the objection, then I, as proposer, would be happy with that. It is an extremely busy area parking wise.
Councillor Nicholas, are you happy with that? I know it was something that you had an issue with initially.
Yeah, it was, but if it's going to be beneficial, then I would be happy with it to stay in.
Great, thank you. So that's hopefully clarified that one. Councillor Mannion, did you want to come in, or can I go to the vote?
Go to the vote. The point's been clarified by Councillor Dean for me.
Great, thank you. So it's proposed by Councillor Dean, seconded by Councillor Nicholas for refusal on grounds of being contrary to Cheshire East local plan parking standards and taking into account the impact on the local area and parking situation specific to Knutsford. So please indicate whether you are for, against or not voting on the proposal to refuse for those grounds, starting with Councillor Braithwaite, please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
For, Chair.
Councillor Pindlow.
For.
Councillor Harewood.
For.
Councillor Holland.
Yes, for, Chair.
Councillor McFarlane.
For.
Councillor Mannion.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
Against.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Smetham.
Against.
And myself, Councillor Brown, for. So that is carried, I understand, by 9 votes to 2 for refusal. Thank you, members. Are we okay to move on to the next application and then possibly take a comfort break after that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the next application, item 9, application number 20/3505M, and this is for change of use from a C1 hotel to a C4 HMO at 4 Victoria Street, Knutsford, for the applicant, Mr. Masood Hui of Longview Hotel. Can I again invite our planning officer, Paul Wakefield, to present the application?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so excuse me. So 4 Victoria Street. Excuse me, Chairman, just one moment. Sorry. Right, so just, yeah, so 4 Victoria Street, you can just see edge red there. You can see it in relation to the previous site that we were considering, which is just on Manchester Road, edged in blue, up there, just here, to the left of the screen. And again, yeah, located within a predominant residential area close to the town centre. Existing use again as a hotel, and there is a parking area adjacent to it that currently serves the hotel as well. That's in land edge blue, not within the application site itself. Again, just to put it in that wider context, town centre is just off the page to the bottom there on the side. You can just see the car park as well in a bit of detail next to the site. Just as a reminder, there are 2 dwellings that have been approved on that parking area, and so it's not proposed that it does serve the HMO as stated in the report, and as with the previous application, there's no off-street parking proposed as part of the application. So this is the application site. It's this end property here that has windows facing on towards the car park. And then just looking along Victoria Street, just to get an understanding of the character of the general area, and you can just see the heath again to the end there. So this is the proposed site plan as existing. Small amount of external amenity space provided at the back, and then the existing floor plans again just showing the the floor plans as currently as they currently exist, with bedrooms and a sitting room on the ground floor and a kitchen on the ground floor, and then bedrooms on the first and second with their ancillary rooms off them as well, bathrooms, etc. Then the proposed plans just show bedrooms on the upper floors and a communal sitting room and kitchen on the ground floor, and another bedroom as well. And then existing and proposed elevations, existing at the top, proposed to the bottom, and again, as you can see, no external alterations proposed. And yeah, as with the previous application, it is recommended for approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wakefield. So I could now move on to public speaking on this item and invite again the Ward Councillor, Councillor Stuart Gardner, to address the committee. Councillor Gardner, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I don't wish to reiterate what I said with regard to the earlier application. I've got 2 points to make. The first relates to the amenity of the prospective occupiers. The plans that were submitted, and I assume are part of the pack provided to members, show similar, almost identical layouts on the first and second floor. As you will have noted from the photographs shown by the officer, the second floor is accommodation within the original roof space of the building, which does benefit from having 2 quite substantial dormers on the side, but these are to serve the bathroom facilities, and this means that the within that roof space will have limited headroom for quite a substantial proportion of it, and I believe that therefore those first floor rooms are not the second floor rooms, the ones in the roof space, are not adequate to meet the requirements of the council's the space requirements for the council's housing department, and would ask that there are internal measurements made of any rooms once the after this, before any licenses are issued, because I believe that that would not be. It's interesting that the applicant's agent is an estate agent, and if these were estate agent's drawings, they would be required to show where there was restricted headroom, and that is not shown on those drawings. It will be probably between 30 and 40% of the floor area on both of the main rooms on that in the top that would be restricted by the fact that that there wouldn't be sufficient eaves unless they are marketing the properties for particularly diminutive people. The second point relates to parking. Now, I wasn't aware of the planning permission for the 2 houses on the parking area at the back, so I was less concerned here. But I must tell you that firstly, I am very aware of this street because I live in the neighbouring street, and it is not possible for us to have a residence parking scheme, and this is because the highway is not wide enough. The reason for that is, as Mr. Jones will concur, in order to have a residence parking scheme, legislation requires the vehicles to be parked on the highway and not on the pavement. If in my street, which is on one side of the road identical to the one you've got here almost, but not on the other, because there has been a more modern development on Victoria Road on one side, which those properties have drives. But on my street, if we all parked on the road and not on the pavement, it would be impossible for a vehicle to get down, any vehicle. I'm not talking about an ambulance or a refuse vehicle, I'm talking about any vehicle. So the option of having controlled parking in the way that Councillor Holland has suggested on the earlier application is not feasible, because it wouldn't be lawful to do so, not without the residents in my street and the parallel streets all being up in arms, because it would mean the only way that you can achieve a parking scheme is to put yellow lines all down one side, which of course would halve the number of spaces you've already got, and then give a bun fight for those people who are applying for the parking passes, which does mean that the reason for refusal on the other one, actually there is significant support that could be included in any appeal statement to support the council's position on that. So I've no further thing. I don't believe this is an appropriate development for the reasons stated. the accommodation in the roof space is inadequate for what is called the second floor, and that there is insufficient parking. But I also think that given this was a house that's become an annex to a hotel, because it's an annex, it's not a hotel itself, it should be returned to proper residential use. And I've got the same problems I had with the previous minutes, but I understand that maybe members of your committee don't concur with my views on that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Can I ask, are there any questions from members, please, for Councillor Gardner? No. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gardner. Thank you, members. We don't have any further public speakers on this item registered, so I can quickly ask Mr. Wakefield if there's anything he wishes to come back on. Otherwise,
no, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And I suspect the relevant questions have already been asked as part of the previous applications, so perhaps we can simply go straight to the debate. Councillor Dean.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I understand what Councillor Gardner is saying about the top 2 apartments in the roof space, and it may well be an issue for those particular apartments, but there again, I suppose people have a choice of whether they take them or not with reduced headspace. So I'm going to kind of swerve that one, but I would say that as far as I'm concerned, I'm in the camp for refusal of this one on exactly the same reasons as the previous application.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, please.
Yes, as Councillor Gardner mentioned, I don't know whether it's yourself, Chair, that alluded to a car park that has planning permission for 2 houses. Do we know who owns that property? And the reason I ask that is because if the same people own this property, then really this should have been just all put in as one planning application, and I think we would have a very different viewpoint of how we'd consider it. Because if you're going to put forward proposals for accommodation without parking, but also take car parking away that's already there, I understand that we can only refer to what's been before us, and that's what we should be making a proposal on. But because parking the issue, I do think there's a relevance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Yes, I would agree. Absolutely, we have to make the decision based on what's before us, but I understand that the sites are under the same ownership. Councillor Mannion, please.
Did Councillor Dean make a proposal?
No.
No. Well, could I make a proposal then that we refuse this application and on very similar grounds to which were recorded for the previous item on this afternoon's agenda?
Thank you. So just to be clear, that's lack of compliance with Cheshire East local plan parking standards and impact on the parking situation specifically in Knutsford. Is that proposal?
Chair, could I just add a couple of words? In that part of Knutsford, because it's a terrace street effectively, and I'm aware that other, that not all Knutsford is terrace streets. So I think we need to stress it's about that particular part of Knutsford, as highlighted by Councillor Gardner a few minutes ago.
Noted, in that part of Knutsford. Thank you. Is that proposal seconded, Councillor Dean?
Yes, I'm more than happy to second that, Chairman.
That's great. Councillor Harewood?
I was going to second it, Chair, but it's already done.
Councillor Dean has beaten you to it. Is anybody else wanting to speak, or shall I go straight to the vote? Okay. Councillor Harewood, your hand's gone back up again. I'll assume that was in error. So I will move on to take the vote then. So it's been proposed by Councillor Mannion, seconded by Councillor Dean for refusal for the reasons that we've just set out. And I'll take the roll call. Please indicate for, against or not voting on the proposal for refusal. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Findlow.
For.
Councillor Harewood. Councillor Harewood, you're on mute, I think. And Councillor Mannion, you're not on mute. Councillor Holland.
Yes, sir. I'm in favour of refusal.
Thank you. Councillor McFarlane.
For, Chair.
Councillor Mannion.
For, Chair.
Councillor Murphy.
Not voting.
Councillor Nicholas.
For.
Councillor Smitham.
Against.
And I'll just try again, Councillor Harewood, please.
For.
For, thank you. And myself, Councillor Brown, also for. So I make that 9 for, 1 against and 1 abstention. So that's clearly carried for refusal. So before we move on to the next application, I'd like to propose that we take a 10-minute comfort break, and then I make it 3:45 now, so if we can be back in the meeting for 5 to 4, please. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, good afternoon again, members. Welcome back. Sorry, but I need to do the roll call again. I know it's a nuisance. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Here, Chair.
Thank Councillor Dean.
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Councillor Finlow.
Present.
Councillor Harewood.
Here, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Yes, I'm here, Chair.
Councillor McFarlane.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Mannion.
Present.
Councillor Murphy.
Present.
Councillor Nicholas.
You can't get rid of me that easy.
We'll try. And Councillor Spadham.
Present.
Thank you. So just a brief slight change to the agenda. There have been some technical issues with the person who's registered as a public speaker on item 10. So in the interests of allowing us to move on with the meeting while the technical team try and sort that issue, we're going to take item 11 first, which is the enforcement report, and then hopefully take item 10 when the technical issue has been resolved. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So we're moving on to item 11, which is the performance of Planning Enforcement Service report for the first 2 quarters of 2020-21. And I'd like to invite Deborah Ackerley to present the report for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. If I may, I will just try and share my screen with you in the first instance. Just let me, Chair, if you can let me know when this is working from your end, that will be appreciated.
Will do.
Oh, he's just arrived in. He's just in now.
Yeah.
Right. Can you see my screen, Chair?
I can see that now, Deborah. Thank you.
Right. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. It took some time to load. Right.
Sorry, Deborah, to interrupt. Can I just to let the speaker on item 10 make him aware? I understand the technical issue has been resolved, but we'll continue with this item and then go back to item 10. Thank you.
Right, so good afternoon, members. I don't intend to take very long going through this report because I appreciate you've already had a long meeting and you've still got another item to deal with. I understand that the copy of the report that you got was actually in black and white rather than in colour, so hopefully these slides will just help to clarify matters for you with regards to the figures that are contained within that report. If we go initially to chart 1, we're looking at the reporting period where we had 1,048 new enforcement cases. 977 of those were actually closed within that period. So it shows that we've had quite a big throughput of cases. But if we can look at chart 1 initially, which demonstrates that the biggest percentage by far of cases that we receive or complaints that we receive relate to unauthorised operational development, i.e. people building things on land, within their gardens, wherever, without the benefit of planning permission. The other large sector relates to material changes of use. Breaking that down into percentage terms, 55% of the complaints that we receive relate to unauthorised operational development. You'll see that we receive very few with relation to advertisements, although there are some hotspots within the borough which we are aware of. Turning now to the reasons for closure of those cases which we have closed through the reporting period. The largest sector of those cases closed were closed because they didn't actually relate to a breach of planning control, in that they weren't development in whatever form. Either they weren't a material change of use that was reported, or they didn't actually constitute development in its own right, or the development was permitted by virtue of the general permitted development order, which means basically it's granted permission by statute and we have no control over it. So as you can see, a large percentage of officers' work actually relates to investigating matters which we have no control of, so we cannot take any action. Often that's not a message which is easy to receive, but if we have no control, we have no control, and that's, you know, sometimes a difficult message to get across. So as you'll see from chart 4, 51% of the reported breaches actually didn't relate to a breach of planning control. Now, they may have been breaches of other legislation, and where possible, we will signpost customers to other services within the council or other bodies that may be able to assist them, such as the Health and Safety Executive, if they're concerned about unsafe practices on site. Chart 5 looks at the breakdown of the priorities of cases. As you will be aware, we prioritise the cases 1 to 3 based on the degree of harm which we believe is being caused or likely to be caused by the particular activity which has been reported to us. The higher percentage of those are actually priority 3. So those are those complaints where we think they are causing lesser harm, or where we believe that in the first instance, from looking at it, well, the likelihood is that this won't be development, or it won't be something that we have any control over, but obviously that's something that we need to verify by a site visit, etc. Whilst this reporting period does include the area of full, the time period of full lockdown at the beginning of, well, end of March, beginning of April, we have still managed to serve some notices. As you'll see, there was 2 enforcement notices, and we've managed to serve a temporary stop notice. Now, the service of notices has been logistically slightly more tricky during the time of the pandemic, and obviously we still have restrictions upon us, but we will serve notices as and when it is necessary. But it may take us slightly longer than would normally if we were operating under normal circumstances, which you will all appreciate at the moment we're not. So those were the main figures that I wanted to just put before the members, and obviously show you those the slideshow. If I can now retrieve my screen and stop sharing, which is the next task for me. If members have got any questions, then I'm happy to answer them, obviously on the report only rather than site-specific questions.
Thank you for the report. Exactly. So if I can ask, are there any members who would like to ask a question on the content of the presentation, please? Councillor Smetham, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at my page 128, and 4.9 refers to section 7 that advises on future reports. My last page is number 146, which is entitled Status Report. It's Appendix 1, Status Report on cases where formal enforcement action has been taken, 22nd of October. So I'm not sure where section 7 is, please.
So Smetham, just before we ask Mrs. Ackley to address that, could I advise that you're still sharing your screen?
Yes.
We're able to see things other than the report.
I do have problems stopping sharing my screen for some reason. It doesn't seem to want to stop sharing once I've started sharing, but
Okay. I'll ask you to address Councillor Smetham's question then, please.
Yeah. Sorry. Right, if I can just go back to the report myself.
It's gone from our screens now, which is
Right, okay, that's fine, that's fine. Sorry, what section of the report was it that you were?
It was section 4.9 refers to section 7, advising on future reports.
Right, and you haven't got section 7.
No, I can't find it.
Right, okay. Normally we would do biannual reports to members.
So it's not intended to be amongst these papers today?
No. No. You're not referring to Appendix 1, are you?
No, I've got Appendix 1.
Right, okay, that's fine.
But on page 1 to 8 of our report, item 4.9 speaks on section 7. It advises on future reports. And I'm extremely interested in future reports because one day I hope to see Goresworth represented here amongst these reports of action taken. One day.
Right, okay. We'll put that on our to-do list for you then.
It should be already on there, apart from what section 7 advises.
Okay.
All the other enforcement issues that I've reported recently, or even some years ago, actually. I know, and I appreciate all the hard work you've done to date, especially in the current difficult circumstances. But there are some issues in Goresworth. I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a separate conversation with me outside this meeting, then I'm quite happy to do that.
Thank you, and I would appreciate knowing about section 7 as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Findlow, please.
Well, there is 7.0 future reports on page 134. It says the next report will be presented in April 21. I've got issues as well in Prestbury, not just in Goresworth. But there we are. We're not here to discuss individual cases, I know, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor McFarlane.
Hello, Deborah. Yes, just out of interest, I'm looking at Appendix 1, the one in Wilmslow West. How long do you keep going, pursuing enforcement action? Is there a time limit you do, or you just keep chasing these guys? How does it work out?
It really does depend on the particular case. It is, as we say, on a case-by-case basis, and it depends what the issues are. Now, if necessary, we will exhaust all our enforcement powers in order to achieve a satisfactory outcome. Unfortunately, that can take a long time in some instances, particularly where we have a very intransigent customer, should I say, and they are willing to, well, fail to comply with any request that the local authority makes of them.
Yeah, I appreciate it's very difficult. I'm not making any comments. I'm just wondering out of interest. This one here goes back to 2016, which is it's a long time.
Yeah, that's not the oldest one we have. I can say hand on heart, we do have some that are older than that, and we have many processes, procedures that we have to go through, which often involve outside influences, if you like. The court process, we're entirely within their hands when it's setting timetables, and the appeals process again can delay matters and takes an awful long time, and again the timescales are outside our influence, but where we can, we will work as quickly as we can to get matters resolved.
Sure, I appreciate you doing your best. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions from members in relation to the report? Nope. Okay, in that case, can I thank you very much, Mrs. Ackley, for attending and talking us through that. Members are simply asked to receive the report, so I don't think we need to take a vote on this. If anybody doesn't want to receive the report, perhaps they should just put their hand up. I'll take the sense of the meeting that we're receiving the report. So thank you, and thank you for your work on that, Mrs. Ackley.
Thank you.
Councillor, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is actually item 10, which is an application for a tree preservation order on behalf of Cheshire East Borough Council at 2 Grassfield Way, Knutsford. And can I now invite Ian Dale to present this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I'll just share my screen with you, hopefully. Can you all see my screen now?
Not yet.
Oh. Right, I'm sorry, can you see it now?
No, I'm wondering if it's possible for somebody else to share the report.
It might be. I'm sorry, I'm not sure quite what's going on there.
I have the presentation, Chairman, if it would help, and then maybe...
That would be very helpful, thank you, Paul.
Just bear with me one moment.
I'm sorry about this. I've only actually got half my screen now.
Well, we're now able to see the PowerPoint presentation, so I don't know whether you're able to talk through it, or whether perhaps turning your own camera off will make you be able to see the full screen.
No, sorry. Let me just... I'm sorry about this. I think it's something's happened when I tried to present it.
Does he want to rejoin the meeting? Leave and rejoin.
Yeah, perhaps if you log off and then rejoin the meeting.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
Try that.
Right, I can see that you're back in the meeting.
I can
see what we can see.
Chair, I can see the presentation now.
Oh, excellent. Over to you.
Paul, could you just click through to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the purpose of the report is to consider whether or not to confirm a TPO made on a single oak tree at 2 Grassfield Way, Knutsford, and it's on the corner with Summers Way. And our recommendation is to approve. Next slide, please, Paul. So this aerial photograph shows you the location of the tree on the corner, as indicated by the red arrow. It's quite a large oak tree. Next slide, please. A photograph taken in the summer this year. You can see that it's quite a significant tree, and it's within the front garden of the property. Next slide. This is a view looking along Grassfield Way eastwards, taken in November last year, again showing the tree and how it features in the street scene. And then the next slide is looking the other way, down Grassfield Way. Thank you, Paul. Next slide. So the circumstances leading to the TPO is that the property became vacant in 2009 and residents contacted us at that time requesting that a TPO be made on the oak tree. We assessed it, but unfortunately we couldn't take the TPO forward due to staffing matters at that time. Earlier this year, a planning application was registered, and on the 11th of August, tree surgeons turned up to dismantle the tree. Residents objected to that and persuaded the tree surgeons to leave, and we were alerted, and a TPO was served on the 14th of August this year. Thank you, Paul. Next slide. We've received objections to the tree preservation order from Cheshire Woodlands and Mr. Philip Hobbs, who I believe is speaking, and the objections have been considered and are addressed within the report. Our decision to make the tree preservation order has been made following a transparent and considered process in accordance with government guidance. We feel that the loss of the tree would have a significant impact on the amenity and landscape character of the area, and therefore that we are recommending that the tree preservation order is confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I could now move on to the public speaker for this item. If I could ask you, Ian, to just turn off your microphone for a moment and invite Phil Hobbs, who is an objector, to address the committee. Mr. Hobbs, if you'd like to turn on your camera and microphone, and you have 3 minutes from whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and greetings from